I did hear a lot of stories about my grandfather, and I didn't know whether to believe them or not. My mother said, okay, they're samurai family. He went to medical school, went to law school, and I thought, how can that be? How can someone go to medical school and law school and then come to the United States? Doesn't really make a lot of sense. But I did find out when I went to Japan the records, and he did go to medical school in Kyoto and law school in Tokyo, and apparently never finished. So the stories about my grandfather are he was not really a very good student. He was kind of a playboy. One story was that he felt very badly about selling his sister's kimonos for money so that he could pay for his playthings or playtime or whatever, his fun things. So my grandfather, in the eyes of my mother and her sister, they didn't think that he worked very hard. In fact, they said he really never worked on the farm. He rode the horse and kind of supervised other people working. But their mother, Toshi, was a hard worker. So she cooked for the workers, the family, and also had a little stand where she sold vegetables, from the farm. But my grandfather was apparently reading in his library, and not really working physically. I did hear one story from another Japanese relative. I said, well, why did he come? Other reasons. And he said he didn't like the Japanese character, and he didn't really explain what that meant. What was a Japanese character? I don't really know, but so he was very independent, very stubborn. They talk about typical Issei where if he said the tablecloth that was white was black, it was black. Nobody would argue with him, right? So that was how it was. So it was surprising to see his name on the list of Tuna Canyon internees, and I asked my relatives if they knew that. None of them, of course, knew that. And he passed away in '68, so no chance to talk to him more. And then my grandmother passed away in 1980, before the commission hearings in 1981. But I did decide that it was important to testify. And we wanted people to testify because we were actually worried that we wouldn't have enough people. Because we told the commission, you have to come to L.A. because people in L.A. live here and then they can't go to Washington. They want to testify. And then when we put out the call, people weren't coming. And then, Jim Masaoka said, everybody here has to prepare a testimony because we may have to testify, for our families. And I kind of believe that every story was different, right? So it would be a good thing if people could, if there was an overflow of testimonies from people. So that's when I first called my uncle to find out what my grandfather had lost. This part I didn't say. He said they had a 20-acre farm. I don't know if they had that much. And they leased it, so they didn't own it, and they lost that, of course, the crops, whatever they had. They had a tractor, they had cars. All that was gone. And their dog, of course, they loved animals, but their dog they had to give to a neighbor. But I did try to get information about that part about my grandfather for the testimony. And, it was kind of emotional for me because, so we were taking care of my mom. She had a kind of an autoimmune illness, actually. It must run in our family. But so she passed away in May, and the hearings were in August. So for me, it was quite emotional. So I did feel a stronger reason or motivation to testify because I knew that, she was gone and her story would never be told, My grandparents were gone, so I thought, it would be important to say.